All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know it, you love it, you got to have it. It's time for the Malzberg panel. And joining us once again, senior fellow at FreedomWorks, Tom Borelli, and columnist for Breitbart.com, and author of WTF, How Karl Rove and the Establishment Lost Again, C. Edmund Wright. Did I get the name right, C. Edmund?
You got it. Perfect.
Okay, good. All right, let's start with Jordan and what they did last night, at least last night our time. I got to say, I was thrilled. I was waiting for the State Department or the White House to come out and issue an order, or at least a statement condemning what Jordan did by hanging the female would-be suicide bomber and an al-Qaeda associate of one of the top al-Qaeda terrorists. But that didn't happen, although I know Obama must have at least gotten sick in the bathroom. What about it, Edmund?
Yeah, that's an interesting story. What's really fascinating, Steve, is King Abdullah was taking retribution a la Clint Eastwood's movie Unforgiven, which he actually quoted by name. But I actually think Abdullah's got the wrong movie. It sounds to me more like he was watching Hang Them High, or Josie Wales. But anyway, I just think it's very interesting that in Jordan the president comes from the special forces, and in this country the president comes from community organizing and the Choom Gang. And I think we're seeing two different types of leadership from those two men right now.
What about it, Tom?
C. Edmund's absolutely right. It's an eye for an eye there in the Middle East. And again, we always have to go back to what ISIS is doing there. Every time they do one of these brutal executions, it's an advertisement for Obama's foreign policy failures. Obama created ISIS in his little laboratory of pulling people out of Iraq, creating a vacuum, and then calling them a JV team by trying to stick, a finger in their eye, and now they're showing him. Meanwhile, Obama's six-pack, his coalition is not working, and he's really now in a really tough spot, which puts us in a really tough spot.
And gentlemen, I mean, I played over and over the president's reaction yesterday. Just emotionless. And I've said, for years, but especially in the past few months, that nothing touches this man. Whether it's rabbis being slaughtered in a Jerusalem synagogue, whether it's Christians being beheaded, whether it's a member of the coalition being burned to death on video, or an American being beheaded, Japanese being, he doesn't, I don't want to say he doesn't care, but it doesn't reach him. Edmund?
Well, if you look back through the tyrants in history, they had absolutely no regard, Steve, for the lives of others. It's all part of a narcissistic personality. This is definitely what we're dealing with in our White House now. It's what we had with Joseph Stalin. It's what we had with Adolf Hitler. And obviously, Obama's not done anything like they have. But when it comes to the careless disregard for the lives of others, it's the same thing. Other people are just pawns to be moved around and killed when necessary as part of their political agenda.
What about it, Tom?
Well, yeah, he's a college professor at best, and it just doesn't compute into the theory of the way the world should work rather than the way the world does work. And that's one of the fundamental problems. The other one is none of the allies can trust him, and that is a huge problem. Look what he's doing to Israel and Bibi Netanyahu. Saudi Arabia doesn't trust him. He's now trying to deal with Iran. So it's really just helter-skelter, and it really puts us in a really perilous spot.
I think, I forget who suggested this, but what Obama should say is if you harm one more coalition member or one more American citizen, and they have a female that they've been holding since 2013, we will take every prisoner at Gitmo and we'll chop their heads off. Or something. I mean, something. Show some emotion.
Steve, that would be a great idea because he wants to close Gitmo anyway. See, he could kill two birds with one stone.
He's too busy giving the detainees away.
That would be one way. I think a lot of people around the country would be in favor of closing Gitmo. All right, we have a lot more to talk about with Tom and C. Edmund Wright when we come back. I want to get into Hillary. There was a hit piece on the front page of the New York Times yesterday on Chris Christie that he has expensive taste. Well, there's some information out about what's being called Hillary's high life as well. And come on. They say she has a diva list that would put some of the biggest singers, J-Lo and company, to shame. So we'll talk about that. And will Hillary be able to coast even without participating in a debate, all the way to the Democratic nomination for 2016. All that's coming ahead next. Part 2 of the panel right after the break. Don't go away. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there's a piece out at National Review by Andrew Johnson, which talks about, as he puts it, Hillary's high life. And they go back to 2008 when Hillary ran for the nomination, obviously against Obama, and Romney ran for the presidential nomination on the Republican side. Both lost. But get this, according to Johnson, Hillary Clinton spent more than 9 times as much money as Romney did on private jets during the 2008 race. 9 times. We're rejoined by Tom Borelli and, of course, senior fellow at FreedomWorks, and C. Edmund Wright, columnist at Breitbart.com, an American thinker. And Tom, you know, if there was a true media out there, we would all know this by now, and Hillary would be called out for exactly what she is, $300,000 speeches, they say. And I heard this when I was at WOR, and she was up for one of her books or something. They said that you're not supposed to, if you see her in the hall, don't look her in the eye. I swear that's what they said. And how many times have we heard that subsequently about Hillary, people being told, don't look her in the eye? I just don't understand how she gets this pass.
What we're looking at is Hillary Romney Clinton, was what we're going to be talking about now, because talking about being wealthy and out of touch. I mean, Hillary is far more out of touch than I think Mr. Romney ever was, and we see it every day. We see it with even her daughter Chelsea, who had this cake job at NBC News for, you know, picking up $600,000 a year for doing 1 or 2 interviews. I wish Newsmax paid like that. I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous.
And how do you know they don't?
I don't.
Edmund, what about it?
Well, I think the real story here, Steve, is that the Clinton Foundation, which is where a lot of these speaking fees get deposited, the Clinton Foundation is nothing but a money laundering scheme for Hillary 2016. The same people that will be running her campaign are now high-paid consultants for the Clinton Foundation, getting obscene amounts of money, so they'll work on the cheap for the campaign, where the finance laws are a lot tougher. And of course, you know, so the whole thing, it's the biggest scam in politics, money laundering, this side of union dues.
You know, that is a great point. It's corporatism gone wild. It's an orgy of corporatism. You have the corporate elite, you have the political elite, all there, and it's just the money goes around. But Hillary faces a big problem, I think, when she's going to try to get, if she makes it to the general election, if she's the nominee from the Democrats, she has to find a way to get middle-class voters. And she's not going to be able to do that by being part of the political elite. I don't think this is going to happen in the 2016 election.
But Edmund, what I'm afraid of, and Tom makes a good point, but what I'm afraid of is there will be no competition from the Democratic side. As we are talking about, they're now saying that she might not even have to have a debate. And you got women out there, and millennials, unfortunately, 77% of whom cannot name one of their 2 U.S. senators, who say, yeah, it's time for Hillary. That's what frightens me.
Well, this is where we need the Republican primary process to not be an intramural, you know, bashing contest, but we need to see which of these guys will take the message against the liberals, the Democrats, and Hillary Clinton the best, and not who can, you know, who can worry about who's mowing whose lawn and who's getting a Fannie Mae contract or whatever, and all the other nonsense in the last Republican debate season. So the fact that she doesn't have to debate a Democrat doesn't mean she can't be, you know, brought up on all of this in front of the public.
Tom, you think that'll happen?
Well, you know, what's most important is for Republican, you know, come out with strong conservatives, show that contrast. You know, again, she's flying around on big jets, and yet she's a big global warming fan. So, you know, none of this really connects with reality, but we need the right, you know, Republican candidate to expose that, and that's most important.
To fight back at the media machine, to fight back at the Democratic machine, the Clinton machine, and to not be afraid of being accused, oh, she's a woman. Look, you're only saying that because she's a woman. Just do what Newt did at some of those debates last year. You know, spit in the face, figuratively speaking, of the media, and call them out when they need calling out, and go from there. Stop being so sensitive about what the independents won't like. Anyway, gentlemen, Tom Borelli and C. Edmund Wright, thank you both for joining me on the Malzberg panel. As always, when we come back, ladies and gentlemen, it'll be the first of the Gimme Fives for today, and you're not going to want to miss it. Don't go away.